He kept glancing at the security cameras, like he was being watched, but no one else was in the store. I was a few hours into a late-night drive through central Pennsylvania, trying to outrun a week's worth of heartbreak. My girlfriend of 3 years had broken up with me out of nowhere, and the walls of my apartment had started to feel like they were pressing in, so I packed a bag, filled my tank, and just drove. No destination, just road. It was around 1:30 in the morning when I realized I needed gas. I hadn't seen a town in miles, just stretches of empty woods and pitch-black 2-lane roads. My GPS had lost signal about 30 minutes prior, and my phone was at 9%, but I finally spotted a flickering sign ahead. One of those old gas stations, with half-lit letters buzzing in the dark like dying insects. I pulled in. The overhead lights cast a sickly yellow glow onto the cracked pavement, and the whole place smelled faintly of damp concrete and motor oil. One pump was wrapped in caution tape. The other worked, though just barely. I filled the tank, then decided to grab a snack and use the bathroom inside. It was quiet, too quiet. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed louder than it should have. Then, like the building was holding its breath, rows of dusty shelves held off-brand chips, canned chili, and batteries. The coolers buzzed faintly, and behind the counter stood a man who looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He didn't look up when I walked in, just stared at the small monitor above the register. Grainy black and white security footage showing different corners of the store. Every few seconds, he'd glance over his shoulder, then back to the screen. I said, "Hey," just to break the silence. Nothing. I grabbed a bag of chips and a bottle of water, wandered toward the register. Up close, he looked worse. Hollow cheeks, sallow skin, and these deep, purplish bags under his eyes. He looked drained, like someone who hadn't felt safe in a long time. "You open 24 hours?" I asked. He nodded, didn't speak, just kept flicking his eyes between me and the screen. "You all right?" I said, trying to keep it light. That's when the little radio behind him crackled to life. Just static, loud, jarring. He flinched. I mean really flinched, like someone had fired a gun behind him. He reached back and quickly turned the knob until it clicked off. Then, under his breath, he muttered something. I didn't catch it. His hands were shaking as he scanned my stuff. I noticed it more when he was bagging. The chips crinkled loud in the stillness. Then, without looking at me, he said, "Don't stop until you're out of this town." I blinked. What? He looked up for the first time. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was something desperate behind them. "Don't pull over for anyone, no matter what. Just keep driving." I half laughed. Is this like some local ghost story thing? He didn't smile, just shoved the bag across the counter toward me and muttered, "Go, now." I left. Not because I was scared, not yet, but because it was just too weird. I got in the car, pulled out of the lot, and turned back onto the main road. The gas station disappeared behind me in seconds. Then something strange happened. I felt cold, not outside. The car heater was on, and the air blowing from the vents was warm. But inside, underneath my skin, a kind of chill settled into my chest. A heavy, nervous tension. Like something was wrong and my body knew it before my brain did. I drove a few more miles, the road twisting through trees and long stretches of unlit highway. Then I saw it. Hazard lights blinking ahead. A small sedan had pulled slightly off the shoulder. its back left tire sunken into the ditch. A woman stood beside it, waving one hand frantically. At first, I slowed down. She was pale, barefoot, her clothes soaked through. Her dark hair clung to her face, and she looked like she'd been standing in the rain for hours, except it hadn't rained all night. The sky was clear, moonlit. I was maybe 20 yards away when I remembered what the guy in the store had said. Don't pull over for anyone. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to stop. She looked like she needed help, but something in her face, her eyes, made my gut twist. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me. I pressed the gas and passed her. I caught a glimpse of her expression as I went by. Not shocked, not angry, just still, empty, as if she'd been through this before. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, she was still standing there. But now she'd stopped waving. She was just watching, unmoving, and behind her, from the edge of the woods, another figure stepped out, tall, motionless, expressionless, just standing beside her like he'd been waiting. I didn't stop again. I didn't even slow down until I hit the interstate, another 10 minutes later. I didn't feel warm again until I was 2 towns over, surrounded by gas stations and diners and the distant hum of normalcy. I slept in my car that night in a Walmart parking lot, engine running, doors locked. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about the gas station. I tried pulling it up on Google Maps, retraced my route the best I could, but nothing came up. I remembered the bend in the road, the sagging billboard before it. I found the spot. Street view showed a boarded-up building, windows shattered, rusted pump nozzles scattered in the weeds. The place had clearly been abandoned for years. No lights, no working pumps, no man behind the counter, just another forgotten shell on a forgotten road. I don't know what I stumbled into that night. I don't know what that woman really was, or what was in the woods beside her, but I know I wasn't supposed to stop, and I think if I had, I never would have left that town. The basement lights only turned on from the inside, and no one was supposed to be down there that late. I've worked the night shift at Redfield Community College for 8 years. Janitorial staff are usually invisible, and I was fine with that. The silence, the solitude, it gave me room to think. Most nights, I'd make my rounds with the low hum of the vacuum in my ears, and my thoughts drifting toward nothing in particular. Just the rhythm of cleaning, one hallway after another. But there's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. A silence that feels aware of you. And I felt it that night. It was late October, cold enough to make the windows sweat. A storm had rolled in, nothing unusual for the area. But around 11:40 p.m., the power flickered. Not just the lights, but the whole building system. Alarms, elevators, even the motion sensors. Everything reset. I waited, letting the backup generator kick in. Lights came back, but some of the systems stayed off. I had to finish the last 2 buildings manually. Nothing I hadn't done before. I was tired, but not enough to call it quits. Midnight, I made it to the administration wing, old part of the campus, where they keep ancient records and the offices no one uses anymore. That's when I noticed something strange. The elevator panel was lit up. It had gone down to the basement. Now, here's the thing. I was the only one logged in that night. The basement is almost never used. It's mostly archives and out-of-date AV equipment, and it's usually locked. What really made my skin crawl, though, was remembering the way the lights work down there. You have to be inside for them to turn on. Motion activated, but only from within. I stood there for a second, just staring at the panel. Part of me thought it was just a glitch, same one that knocked out the security system, but I couldn't ignore it. If someone was down there, they weren't supposed to be. So I grabbed my flashlight from the cart and hit the button. The elevator creaked its way up like it hadn't been used in months. When the doors slid open, the smell hit me first. Stale air, like mold and dust that had been sealed up for years. I stepped in, hit B, and felt the car shudder as it descended. The doors opened to complete darkness. No lights, just a hallway stretching into the shadows. My flashlight flicked on, and the beam caught dust dancing through the air like tiny floating bones. The basement was colder than it should have been. I pulled my jacket tighter and stepped out. The sound of the doors closing behind me echoed. Too long, like the place had swallowed the noise. There were a series of archive rooms along the hall, doors, metal and numbered. Most were cracked open slightly, just enough to feel off, like someone had gone through them and didn't bother closing them all the way. I told myself maybe someone from records had forgotten to log their time. Maybe they were looking for something during the day and didn't put it back right. Still, I started checking them one by one. Most were filled with shelves of crumbling boxes and metal filing cabinets. Smelled like wet cardboard and mildew. I kept moving, the beam of my flashlight cutting a narrow path through the darkness. Then I heard it, a soft, metallic clink, followed by a dragging sound. Not constant, just one slow scrape. Then silence, then another, from deeper in the corridor. Froze, every instinct telling me to go back upstairs. But curiosity, or maybe stupidity, pushed me forward. I called out, voice low and cautious. "Hello, maintenance." No answer. I followed the sound, passing more half-open doors. Then I saw one I'd never noticed before. Records to be. The sign looked newer than the rest. Almost wrong, like someone had replaced it, but didn't want it to stand out. Pushed the door open. Inside were rows of tall filing cabinets, most unlabeled. I opened one, thick folders, typed labels, all dated from the 1970s. The contents, staff termination reports, dozens of them, all from a 4-year span, all abrupt. One folder was empty, except for a single sheet of paper that read, "Do not remove from sub-basement level." Sub-basement. I didn't even know that existed. Just then, my flashlight flickered. I tapped it, and a soft, creaking sound started behind me. Not a drag this time, more like a door easing open slowly. I turned, but nothing was there. Still, the hair on my neck stood up. I left the room quickly. The hallway felt tighter now, like the walls had shifted. Then I noticed something else. One of the archive doors I'd definitely shut earlier was now wide open. Inside, the room was pitch black, but something tall blocked the far end of the beam when I pointed my flashlight in, not moving, just standing. Its outline was human, but stretched off. I didn't wait to figure it out. I ran for the elevator, hit the button 3 times. Nothing. The panel showed in us, E, but I hadn't heard it move. I slammed the button again, harder. No response. I turned and sprinted toward the stairwell. The metal door creaked loudly as I shoved it open. I took the steps 2 at a time. Concrete echoing under my boots. That's when I heard it. Footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate. I whipped around at the landing, empty. I pushed myself faster, lungs burning, until I reached the first floor. I burst through the stairwell door and slammed it shut behind me, flipping the latch. Then silence, complete, suffocating silence. I didn't wait around. I grabbed my things and left that night without finishing the rest of my shift. I didn't sleep. COULDN. Single quotes. The next day, I went to the security office and asked about the basement, specifically records to B. The supervisor gave me a weird look, told me no one had keys to that level anymore. The basement was sealed off after a fire back in '92, apparently. Someone died down there, a clerk trapped when the system locked up during a power surge. The elevator, he said, still lit up now and then because of a wiring fault, but it shouldn't run. It shouldn't go anywhere. I handed in my resignation the next day. I've taken other cleaning jobs since, but nothing with basements. Nothing where lights only turn on from the inside. Still, sometimes when I'm alone and everything's quiet, I hear it again. The soft drag, the creak of metal, the faint sound of something following me up the stairs. And I wonder what I really saw down there, or worse, what saw me. She was soaked, barefoot, and confused, but the real horror was how she got into my locked car. I was driving back from a weekend trip to visit my friend Noah at his college. It was one of those impulsive, last-minute things hadn't seen him in over a year, and I figured the break would do me good. But by the time I hit the road again, it was past midnight, and a steady rain had rolled in. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I saw her. I was somewhere between two small towns, on a long stretch of empty road lined with trees and farmland. No lights except my high beams and the occasional flicker of lightning in the distance. I had talk radio playing low, more for company than anything else. I was tired, zoning out, eyes just scanning the wet road ahead when I noticed movement. Near a street lamp, the only one for miles, a girl, early 20s maybe, drenched, barefoot, standing at the edge of the road with one arm raised like she was trying to flag me down. Her other arm hung limply by her side. Her hair was plastered to her face, and she looked like she'd been out there for hours. I passed her before my brain fully processed what I'd seen. My first instinct was don't stop. What if she was actually in trouble? No one else was around, and she didn't look aggressive. She looked lost, broken. Against my better judgment, I made a U-turn and headed back. She was gone. No sign of her on the shoulder. No footsteps. Nothing. The road was empty except for the flickering lamp and wet asphalt. I slowed down, scanned the tree line, even rolled down my window a little, and called out. Nothing but the hiss of rain. I figured maybe someone else had stopped, or maybe she'd wandered into the woods. Either way, I was exhausted. I turned back around and kept driving. About 10 minutes later, something shifted in the back seat. I assumed that's what it was. I had my duffel and hoodie tossed back there. Maybe the motion of the road moved something. Then I heard it, a cough, wet, ragged, close. I froze. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, and that's when I saw her, sitting in the middle of the back seat, pale as paper, soaked through, hair still clinging to her face. She stared straight ahead, unblinking, shivering slightly, but otherwise still. I swerved hard, pulling onto the shoulder, tires kicking up water. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear the rain for a second. What the hell? How did you get in here? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer, just that same vacant stare. My doors were locked, I muttered, more to myself than her. She blinked slowly, then finally spoke. You weren't supposed to stop. I didn't stop, I said. You were gone, please. Something in her voice changed, from dull to urgent, desperate. I need to know how you got in the car first, I snapped. She turned her head toward me, finally. Her eyes were wide, almost glassy. He's close now. If you stop again, he'll find us. I don't know why, but my stomach turned ice cold. She didn't seem threatening. If anything, she looked terrified. Not of me, but of something else. Who's close? She didn't answer, just curled in on herself slightly and whispered, Don't go off the main road, no matter what. That's how he gets them. I put the car back in gear and merged back onto the road. Rain pounded the windshield, and the wipers squealed with every swipe. I checked the mirror again. She hadn't moved. You need to tell me what's going on, I said, trying to sound calm. They always think the same thing, that it's me you should fear. That line stuck with me. It didn't make sense, but it felt like it did. Somewhere deeper than logic, we drove in silence for a while. The roads were almost completely empty, just occasional flashes of headlights in the far distance. I kept checking the mirror every few seconds. Eventually, she spoke again. Turn in at the next gas station. We have to stop there. Why? I asked. Her eyes met mine in the mirror. He won't cross the light. I didn't know what that meant. I almost ignored her. I mean, none of this was making any real sense. But something in her voice cracked. Panic. Fear so raw it made me hit my blinker without thinking as I pulled into the lot. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed to life. The station was closed. No cars, no people, just bright, buzzing isolation. Now, she said, wait here. Before I could respond, she threw open the door and ran, not toward the store, but behind it, into the woods. I shouted after her, but she was gone within seconds, swallowed by the dark and the trees. I sat there, stunned, engine running, windshield wipers still ticking. Then a pair of headlights appeared behind me. A pickup truck, old, loud engine, rust along the fenders. It slowed as it passed the gas station lot, driver's silhouette visible. Just long enough to scan the area. Then it sped off into the storm. I waited 10 minutes, then 20. She never came back. I checked the back seat. It was empty. No trace of her, except wet footprints, small, bare, leading from the middle of the seat to the door she'd opened. Prints that hadn't been there before. Prints leading out. But my doors had been locked the whole time. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know the look in her eyes was real. I never saw her again. I've gone over every possible explanation. Maybe I dozed off at the wheel. Maybe I imagined it all. But the footprints stayed there for days, even after I cleaned the mats. Don't stop for hitchhikers anymore. And I never take the back.